This is something I've been working on for a long time.
Margaux! Get me out of this!
I can't move. I've never seen AI this advanced.
What the hell did you do to him?
I can't wait to show you what else I have in mind.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2022 science fiction horror film Margaux, a film that is directed by Steve C. Miller and it stars Madison Pettis, Vanessa Morgan, Jedediah Goodacre and Phoebe Mew. Now the film focuses essentially on a murderous smart house. We have a fairly strong opening to the film, and then we are introduced to a group of teenagers that are going to spend the weekend in this smart house to get away from everything. This smart house is called Margaux, and it's got murderous intentions planned for all of them. Right. What are my thoughts on Margaux? Well, this is a concept that has been done quite a lot over the years. You know, murderous artificial intelligence, a murderous smart house. Well, however you want to phrase it, I've reviewed a number of these sort of films on this channel myself. Now, while this is what you would describe as a low-budget film, it's not like a scraping the bottom of the barrel type budget. It's got some really strong production values here. It's got some decent effects for what it's trying to do, and it's got a fairly strong cast. Now, the film itself is exactly what I have described. It is a murderous smart house. So you've got this group of teens in this house. It all starts off pretty gentle, in a sense of they are all, you know, we're introduced to these characters. They're having fun the first night. The house is showing off all these wonderful things it can do, so on and so forth. It's all wonderful and jolly, but we know that there's something sinister about to happen because we're introduced to a fairly shocking opening to this film, and I thought it was a quite strong opening to the film. We're introduced to the previous guests in this house, and the guests are how shall we put it, oft in inventive ways. So we know what this house is capable of, basically. So we're under no illusions as to what's going on. These guests, obviously, these new teenagers within the guest, have obviously got no idea what's about to happen to them. Now, beyond that, there's not really anything new or original or inventive here. And I think the film falls flat in a few areas. First and foremost is the characters. We get, generally speaking here, the usual type of teenage characters we get all the time in these types of movies. You've got the stoner, the self-absorbed influencer. You've got the tech head, you've got the stud, you've got the sex-obsessed ones, I mean? You've got these teens that we've seen since the 80s, thrust into this film, given pretty much zero personalities, and many of them, in actual fact, are quite bloody annoying. So once again, we get these faceless, nameless teenagers that we're supposed to root for. And the only one, again, there's only one who's given any real, I hesitate to say personality, but she's given some kind of attention in regards to the writing. She's like the techie one. Now, when they're first introduced to this house, you've got to kind of click this link so that this house can look at all your socials and everything and learn what you like, learn what you dislike, so that it can properly service you. She kind of declines that. She's got suspicion, sort of thing, about technology and all this kind of stuff. So she kind of is the one that's smart and trying to figure things out, sort of thing. And, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, where that is going in regards to the tech head and artificial murderous intelligence, sort of thing. Now, the film, as I've mentioned, does have some reasonably decent effects. But also has some dodgy effects at the same time. There's like these Dr. Octopus tentacles that come out of everywhere so it can cook for you and do all sorts of things that just look a bit dodgy. And there's this weird like white liquid. It's almost like it describes itself, this house, as like a giant 3D printer. So you've got this weird white liquid so it can kind of create whatever it wants, including the guests in the house, which is how it kind of covers up. When it starts offering them one at a time sort of thing, that's how it covers up that it's killed them, because it kind of recreates them in a 3D printer. And if you don't, don't get too close, you won't figure out necessarily that it's not them. So, I mean, other than some fairly inventive kills here, you've got the usual, you've got like being crushed, you're being massaged to death, you're being glued, you're electrocuted. A whole array of different inventive ways that this house is trying to kill people off. By the end, it gets very messy in a sense of, you get these 3D models of the guests running around havoc around the house that just don't make any sense at all, because they start talking as well, and it gets very, very silly, and it goes beyond, any kind of smart tech. And I mean, this is science fiction. I know it's science fiction. This kind of house doesn't exist, but you do get smart houses, but not to this level, thankfully. But it does get a little bit silly by the end, and it gets quite predictable and quite generic by the end, and it just loses any sense of horror or anything really. And I do think the film started off pretty strongly, with a little bit of gore and inventiveness, and I thought there was a little bit of promise here, but once these kind of faceless, nameless teenagers are introduced, and genuinely, I don't think I could tell you any of their names. Even the final girl, I couldn't tell you her name or anything. They're all really forgettable. And like I say, some of them are really quite unlikable. So they don't write, characters that are memorable at all in this film. So it just kind of turns into a generic mess by the end of the film. But it does have some strong production value, some decent effects, and like I say, it's nicely polished, the film, and there's some decent shots here and there, and they're all very beautiful young people that they've put into the film. So it's not a terrible mess or anything. It's just, I think it could have been so much better. Unfortunately, what we get is a film that is very, very average at best, which is why I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review. I'll be back with more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.